This is Capture Fail, and this is the last time you'll hear my voice on these recordings. This is a reproduction of the American journeys in Jack Kerouac's On the Road using American Truck Simulator, with a reading of the book on the soundtrack. It has to be out of order because the eastern half of the USA isn't in the game yet. I start as Sal Paradise enters Wyoming, and we'll fill in the first 3.5 chapters later. I made the talking book myself with an AI voice from 11 Labs that I thought sounded right. I'm an inexperienced trucker, so backseat driving in the comments is welcome. Hopefully you'll see me improve during the novel. I'm using a Logitech G923 wheel and pedals with added stick shift. I'm old enough to have driven manual geared cars, but I'm a bit rusty.
Wyoming. The stars seemed to get brighter the more we climbed the high plains. We were in Wyoming now. Flat on my back, I stared straight up at the magnificent firmament, glorying in the time I was making, and how far I had come from Sad Bear Mountain after all, and tingling with kicks at the thought of what lay ahead of me in Denver, whatever it would be. And Mississippi Gene began to sing a song. He sang it in a melodious, quiet voice with a river accent, and it was simple. Just, I got a pretty little girl, she's sweet 16, she's the prettiest thing you ever seen. Repeating it with other lines thrown in, all concerning how far he'd been and how he wished he could go back to her, but he done lost her. I said, Gene, that's the prettiest song. It's the sweetest I know, he said with a smile. I hope you get where you're going and be happy when you do. I always make out and move along one way or the other. Montana Slim was asleep. He woke up and said to me, Hey Blackie, how about you and me investigating Cheyenne together tonight before you go to Denver? Sure thing. I was drunk enough to go for anything. As the truck reached the outskirts of Cheyenne, we saw the high red lights of the local radio station. And suddenly, we were bucking through a great crowd of people that poured along both sidewalks. Hell's bells, it's Wild West Week, said Slim. Big crowds of businessmen. Fat businessmen in boots and 10-gallon hats, with their hefty wives in cowgirl attire, bustled and whooped on the wooden sidewalks of Old Cheyenne. Farther down were the long stringy boulevard lights of new downtown Cheyenne. But the celebration was focusing on Old Town. Blank guns went off. The saloons were crowded to the sidewalk. I was amazed, and at the same time, I felt it was ridiculous. In my first shot at the West, I was seeing to what absurd devices it had fallen to keep its proud tradition. We had to jump off the truck and say goodbye. The Minnesotans weren't interested in hanging around. It was sad to see them go, and I realized that I would never see any of them again, but that's the way it was. "You'll freeze your ass tonight," I warned. "Then you'll burn them in the desert tomorrow afternoon." "That's all right with me, long as we get out of this cold night," said Jean, and the truck left, threading its way through the crowds and nobody paying attention to the strangeness of the kids inside the tarpaulin. Staring at the town like babes from a coverlet, I watched it disappear into the night. I was with Montana Slim and we started hitting the bars. I had about $7, 5 of which I foolishly squandered that night. First, we milled with all the cowboy-dudded tourists and oilmen and ranchers at bars and doorways on the sidewalk. Then for a while, I shook Slim, who was wandering a little slap-happy in the street from all the whiskey and beer. He was that kind of drinker. His eyes got glazed, and in a minute, he'd be telling an absolute stranger about things. I went into a chili joint and the waitress was Mexican and beautiful. I ate and then I wrote her a little love note on the back of the bill. The chili joint was deserted. Everybody was somewhere else, drinking. I told her to turn the bill over. She read it and laughed. It was a little poem about how I wanted her to come and see the night with me. I love to Chiquito, but I have a date with my boyfriend. Can't you shake him? No, I don't, she said sadly, and I loved the way she said it. Some other time I'll come by here, I said, and she said, any time, kid. Still, I hung around just to look at her, and had another cup of coffee. Her boyfriend came in sullenly and wanted to know when she was off. She bustled around to close the place quick. I had to get out. I gave her a smile when I left. Things were going on as wild as ever outside, except that the fat burpers were getting drunker and whooping up louder. It was funny. There were Indian chiefs wandering around in big headdresses and really solemn among the flushed, drunken faces. I saw Slim tottering along and joined him. He said, "I just wrote a postcard to my pa in Montana. You reckon you can find a mailbox and put it in?" It was a strange request. He gave me the postcard and tottered through the swinging doors of a saloon. I took the card, went to the box, and took a quick look at it. "Dear Pa, I'll be home Wednesday. Everything's alright with me, and I hope the same is with you. Richard." It gave me a different idea of him. How tenderly polite he was with his father. I went in the bar and joined him. We picked up 2 girls, a pretty young blonde and a fat brunette. They were dumb and sullen, but we wanted to make them. We took them to a rickety nightclub that was already closing, and there I spent all but $2 on scotches for them and beer for us. I was getting drunk and didn't care. Everything was fine. My whole being and purpose was pointed at the little blonde. I wanted to go in there with all my strength. I hugged her and wanted to tell her. The nightclub closed and we all wandered out in the rickety, dusty streets. I looked up at the sky. The pure, wonderful stars were still there, burning. The girls wanted to go to the bus station, so we all went. But they apparently wanted to meet some sailor who was there waiting for them. A cousin of the fat girls, and the sailor had friends with him. I said to the blonde, "What's up?" She said she wanted to go home in Colorado, just over the line south of Cheyenne. "I'll take you in a bus," I said. "No, the bus stops on the highway, and I have to walk across the damn prairie all by myself. I spent all afternoon looking at the damn thing, and I don't aim to walk over it tonight." Listen, we'll take a nice walk in the prairie flowers in the... "There ain't no flowers there," she said. "I want to go to New York. I'm sick and tired of this. Ain't no place to go but Cheyenne, and ain't nothing in Cheyenne. Ain't nothing in New York? Hell, there ain't," she said with a curl of her lips. The bus station was crowded to the doors. All kinds of people were waiting for buses or just standing around. There were a lot of Indians who watched everything with their stony eyes. The girl disengaged herself from my talk and joined the sailor and the others. Slim was dozing on a bench. I sat down. The floors of bus stations are the same all over the country, always covered with butts and spit, and they give a feeling of sadness that only bus stations have. For a moment, it was no different from being in Newark, except for the great hugeness outside that I loved so much. I rued the way I had broken up the purity of my entire trip, not saving every dime and dawdling and not really making time, fooling around with this sullen girl and spending all my money. It made me sick. I hadn't slept in so long, I got too tired to curse and fuss and went off to sleep. I curled up on the seat with my canvas bag for a pillow and slept till 8 o'clock in the morning among the dreamy murmurs and noises of the station and of hundreds of people passing. woke up with a big headache. Slim was gone. To Montana, I guess. I went outside. And there in the blue air I saw for the first time, far off, the great snowy tops of the Rocky Mountains. I took a deep breath. I had to get to Denver at once. First, I ate a breakfast, a modest one of toast and coffee and 1 egg, and then I cut out of town to the highway. The Wild West Festival was still going on. There was a rodeo, and the whooping and jumping were about to start all over again. I left it behind. I wanted to see my gang in Denver. I crossed a railroad overpass and reached a bunch of shacks where 2 highways forked off, both for Denver. I took the one nearest the mountains so I could look at them and pointed myself that way.